I've heard a lot of gardeners talk about the dangers of Asian jumping worms, and if left completely unmanaged, yes, they can be detrimental to your garden, but this is our worst area. When we were digging in the spring, we had hundreds and hundreds of them here, but as you can see, everything is just growing like crazy. It's one of our most fertile, productive areas in the garden this year. So I just wanted to give a few tips on how you can get your garden back if you're experiencing a lot of Asian jumping worm damage, and what we can do to prevent that. So what are we looking for when we talk about the jumping worms? And how do we tell the difference between them and more beneficial earthworms? These guys are a lot more active, even usually much more active than this. They thrash about and jump like crazy. This is actually pretty calm for them, whereas earthworms are a lot chiller. And these guys, they end in more of a point on both ends, whereas earthworms are more bulbous and round. And also that little band-aid looking part that they both have, it's called the clitellum. Yeah, insert childish middle school laughter for that one. But on the jumping worms, it goes all the way around the body. Those earthworms, it only goes part way around. And one of the key differences of what they do, they both consume organic matter, but these guys consume it so rapidly. So they'll take leaves, even wood chips, any carbonaceous material like this, and they consume it incredibly rapidly. And unlike earthworms, they don't tunnel it into the ground to deposit it really deep. They'll stay just on the first few inches and create these coffee ground looking worm castings that it looks really rich, but they can dry out in a very dry year. They can dry out in a hurry. And what that can mean is just very dry, crumbly, infertile soil in your garden. So how do we defend against that? One of the ways is from these beauties here. We generate a lot of compost with our chickens. I'll take pretty much anything we have. I'll start with leaves as a bedding, just dry fall leaves. Every time I mow the lawn, I'll mix that into it. Food scraps, weeds. Of course, they're adding their magic into it. They scratch it into bits. They add fertilizer with their droppings, and it turns into just a beautiful sponge of compost that's incredible for the garden. So when we add that and chop it into the garden with some cover crops, it adds so much organic matter that it gives plenty for the worms to work through. And this is so stabilized that it doesn't just vaporize into nothing. It can really add some long-term fertility. So this is something you should be doing to your garden anyway, whether you have the worms or not. But it certainly helps to keep up with. If you were to just leave your garden unmanaged and you're not adding any organic matter, the worms would just devour through all of it. Another way is just mulch with more leaves, dry leaves, wood chips, rotted wood chips, hay, whatever you have. So massive amounts of organic matter. If they're going to consume it at a rapid pace, we need to add it at a rapid pace. So as long as they have something to keep churning it up, the worms will never burn out the soil completely. If you weren't mulching it, if you weren't adding compost, you wouldn't have rich plants like we see over here. This is all a result of just piling on organic matter. Whether it's nearly finished compost, we mulch like crazy, as I had just mentioned. So inches and inches of leaves. You just need to keep up on top of them and give them something to consume. Otherwise, they'll just overconsume your soil and you'll deplete your garden. You won't have beautiful, lush growth like this. So I just bang my head on my trellis. And this amaranth is about 7 feet tall. growing absolutely incredibly in a bed that had thousands of those little wrigglers. And we've heard horror stories from people. They'll destroy your garden, they turn mine to dust, it's so dry and infertile. I'm telling you, just keep up with the composting, keep up with the mulching, and you will take your garden back. Even try to bury that deep, so you lay obviously the mulch on top, but at the end of the year, even dry leaves and unfinished compost, I'll do a one-time deep flipping to put that under. If the worms are only going to consume the top 4, 5, 6 inches, if we flip all of that under about a foot, that's going to be a nice, beautiful sponge under there that they won't access quite as readily. So you will win this battle, you will reclaim your garden, and your gardens will thank you for it, whether or not you have the worms. Compost and mulch are your friends.